Hey everybody, this is Greg Petix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at American Flagg number 1 through 3, containing the opening salvo of Howard Chaykin's, one might say his magnum opus. These first 3 issues comprise one story, Hard Times, chapters 1 through 3. I gotta say, I don't know where you were in 1982. I think that's when these came out. Let me double check. I'm sorry, 1983. But I was in high school. There wasn't much of a selection of comics at my disposal. I rarely could get to comic shops. And there really wasn't that much stuff at a comic shop. Just lots of Marvel DC stuff. A few weird titles here and there that weren't Marvel DC. But this shows up, and I got the first issue, and I must have reread it like 5 times in a week. It was the comic I was waiting for. It's so much fun, these comics. There's just brilliant, beautiful art, beautiful coloring, amazing lettering, transcendent lettering, design, everything. These are just great comics. And I still love them. I still think they're really fun. So let's crack these open and look at them. Howard Chaykin at this point in his career had been out of comics for 4 or 5 years, working, doing paperback cover illustrations, doing graphic design work. I think he even did some advertising, but mostly just doing book covers. I guess he was just sick and tired of the shitty pay that comics were giving him. But, he loves comics, so when the opportunity arose, First Comics started a couple years before this. And, they gave more freedom than Marvel and DC. They didn't have the comics code. And I believe they gave kind of an ownership stake in the creations you made, at least for some of the writer-artists. So he was like, okay, this is a lot better deal than Marvel and DC were giving me. Maybe I'll come back to comics. And man, what a return. His style had totally changed. In the intervening years, he has this, as you can see, it's like this shading with pointillism. He never really had that before. And just very more precise than he ever drew. His style was a little loose, it almost looked like fashion art. Those artists who drew the sketchy, drawings for fashion magazines. And but now it's this very clear, distinct art. And of course, Chaykin does the cover. And just beautifully designed. I love how the American flag is all broken up behind him. It makes a really good design. Someone's got to put it all back together. Reuben Flagg just might be that man. How could you not pick this up? So right off the bat, we can see there were no comics like this in 1983, from the mainstream. Colors by Lynn Varley, 3 years before Dark Knight Returns. I think she was just starting out then. At this point, she had pretty much just colored some Trevor Von Eeden stuff at DC and a few other things. Fucking gorgeous colors. First comics were printed on slightly better paper than your average Marvel DC comic. It was that Mando paper, so you could have more solid colors, and it shows off Lynn Varley's coloring very well. Even more importantly to the stew, though, is Ken Bruzenak, the letterer. This comic was revolutionary, and a big part of it was Ken Bruzenak's lettering. He was an assistant to Jim Steranko for probably at this point over a decade. So he learned all these design tricks from Steranko, master graphic designer Jim Steranko. So it's a big part of this world that Howard Chaykin creates is Ken Bruzenak doing all these amazing logos, all these cool fonts. It's just so inventive. He's it's not like your average comic with the letter, is kind of invisible if he's doing his job well. It's kind of an invisible art. Ken Bruzenak is really adds a lot to the world we see here. So we see it starts off, it's 2031, and a shuttle is landing from Mars. And it's landing at the Plex Mall in Chicago. And in this world, basically America is really messed up. We're like a third world country. And all the government, which is basically just like corporate CEOs, it's kind of a plutocracy or a kleptocracy. They all live on Mars. They just took off because they could, because the USA is such a mess. So the people stuck there, they're pretty much all the major places where people congregate are the malls, which are heavily secure from all the chaos in America at large. So we see this is a big thing in American Flagg here. He kind of predicts like the internet, where there's just all these streaming things, pop-up ads. And these are just everywhere. They're kind of like a video game, like old school video games. They're just everywhere in the mall. You can put some money in and watch whatever you want and play a game or something, get information. So here's an example of Howard Chaykin's new style with see that pointillism. Well, the shading is I don't know if it's a screen tone that he used or if that's just his pen speckling away. And of course, it's another ad with a great logo. The new Magnum Automatic 666, the mark of the beast. Advertising a gun. So now we meet two of the main characters of this comic. We see Hilton Krieger, whose name is Hammerhead. He's kind of the police chief here. The Plexus Rangers are the cops. He's the chief. His daughter Mandy, very willful, very intelligent, very fiery woman. She is not a big fan of her dad's. And he's not too thrilled with her either. They basically had a very contentious relationship for her whole life. So, and then we meet Raoul the cat, another major character, a talking cat. And he's so damn cute. Howard Chaykin does a really good cat. So, Raoul reminds Hilton, I'll just call him Hammerhead. He reminds Hammerhead that the new ranger is coming in on that shuttle. He should meet him. And also that he's got some porn videos he's smuggling in that his friend on Mars, put in his luggage. So we realize that this guy is, he's not a straight arrow. It's not a square G. So he goes down to the airport part of the mall. And we're introduced to our hero, Reuben Flagg, who isn't that impressive at first sight. He falls asleep on the slidewalk at the airport and falls into this guy, Ernesto Klein Hernandez, he's the rep from the Brazilian states. Brazil is doing really good in this world. They're like really rich. And he's a representative, to the U.S. So Reuben Flagg is introduced to his new boss. And the boss, Hammerhead had no idea who was coming down. They didn't give him a name. Turns out he's Reuben Flagg, famous TV actor who was in a show called Mark Thrust, Sexist Ranger. And here we see more of Ken Bruzenak's crazy, just little design flourishes, doing all these the logo for Mark Thrust, all of it. And it says here, produced entirely by Tromplography. We'll get into that later. Because basically, Howard Chaykin predicted CGI, we'll find out. So, everyone's kind of a buzz about this. They're like, what? Reuben Flagg, the famous actor, is the new cop here? That's crazy. So Mandy comes down to meet him. And also the local madam of the Love Canal franchise of whorehouses. Her name's Gretchen Holmstrom. Holstrom. She flirts with Reuben Flagg and then takes off. Hammerhead basically says, I hope you know how to use a gun. He's like, well, I thought, I'd be able to sleep. Can I start tomorrow? He's like, no, the Go Gangs are attacking. And I should have pointed that out. This is kind of, as the comic progresses, we see these little things, Go Gang 45 minutes, Go Gang 4256, Go Gang 4043. The whole comic just building up the suspense. You don't really know what they're talking about. But then it says, Go Gang now. It's Saturday night. Go Gangs. Anarchist terrorist motorcycle clubs, unaffiliated with any of the 74 political parties legally registered in Cook County. There are 2 local Go Gangs, the Ethical Mutants and the Genetic Warlords. So the Genetic Warlords are attacking the Plex. They do this every Saturday night. They watch Bob Violence, which is this really popular TV show. And they get drink and they take drugs. And then 45 minutes later, like clockwork, they attack them all. They're just crazed. So the cops are armed with, they call them snowballs. The Snowball 99, also known as Caligar's Equalizer. It uses this drug, somnambutal, and it shoots the sleeping gas, basically, at people. It's for crowd control. And I like how the sound effect of the Snowball 99 is Papa Ooh Mau Mau when it explodes, like the old doo-wop song. So we realize that Mandy kind of has a thing for Ruben. He, pulls her away to be a gentleman, and she's like, you can let go of me now. My name's Mandy, by the way. Or just call me Mandy instead of Amanda. So finally, Ruben Flagg gets some sleep. He's been awake for 48 hours. So he goes into his apartment, and the madam is there, Gretchen, and she's the welcome wagon, and he has a nice ride on her. So this is definitely a thing of American Flagg, which was so unique to any comic, other than Underground's. There's so much sex in this comic. I mean, it's always very PG-13. We never see nipples or any kind of nudity. But Ruben Flagg just gets so much action. I guess, he's an ex-popular actor. But every woman he meets wants to fuck him. And he usually obliges them. He's a pretty horny guy. So then the next morning, he meets the mayor, C.K. Blitz. And C.K. Blitz is talking to Amanda. From their discussion, we see that he's pretty corrupt too. Everyone's pretty shady in this Plex mall. He's got these 2 little robot bodyguards called Bert and Ernie. So he takes off, and he tells her about Gretchen, keeping him up all night. And Amanda's very mad. She's jealous. She's not happy about that. So then Hammerhead comes up and says, hey, come on, duty calls. I just love Raoul. I love she's scratching his head just like he's a normal cat. And he's saying, thanks, Mandy. Lower, please. So he takes Hammerhead takes Ruben Flagg on a little chopper flight to show him Chicago. They have these mini gyrocopters in the Plexus Rangers. And he's showing them the sights and just basically what it's like in Chicago. It's basically like Beirut in the 80s. It's just these political gangs are just constantly fighting each other. And they're just kind of ludicrous. Like Howard Chaykin has a good time being satirical, making up these crazy political gangs. We got the Judeo-Christian moralists are fighting the Legion Legion. And the Legion Legion just has scab. So I have no idea what their politics are. They like boils and legions, I guess. I don't know. So Ruben says, where do they get their weapons? And Hammerhead says, the Plex, of course. The Plex supplies them with conventional weapons, vid units, and American Plex press cards. They know the rules. No aircraft, no nukes, No combat in commercial zones. What does the Plex get in return, Ruben asks. And he says, only the highest rated vid show on 3 planets. Firefight all night live. It's a big show. So he mentions 3 planets because there's like basically Mars, the Moon, and Earth. So all the bigwigs live on Mars and the Moon. That's the Plex. The Plex is the overall, basically it's the government, but it's really just this corporate, controlled government. So his first week starts. He says it's a lot of boredom every now and then, punctuated with mind-numbing, senseless outbursts of violence. And he's doing a thing in his journal. He's doing a little tape journal. And he gives us a little history about how the world got this way. 1996, the year of the domino. There was an East Coast meltdown, massive crop failure, USSR collapses in Islamic insurrection, food riots shake Western Europe, Asia assaulted by Black Plague, international bank system collapses, Iran-Israel nuke exchange, Germany reunited, nukes London, California sinks. And that's when pretty much the president, his name's Silver, President Silver just said, okay, we're relocating to Mars. And every single corporate guy worth his salt just ditched Earth. And the Soviet techs at Gagaringrad on the moon, that was their base on the moon, they defected. And so with their help, they retooled Gagaringrad as a broadcast center. The Plex was on the air. So it's pretty much just total propaganda, keeping the salt of the earth, keeping the 99%ers occupied and content with stupid programming and nonstop porn. Another thing he predicted, that there'd be free porn everywhere. And then this guy comes up to him, Cyril Farid Khan. He's one of the go-gangers. He's in the genetic warlords. He's the chief. And he basically says, yeah, you know the guy before you who died? We had a deal. You give me money, and every Saturday night, I'll shoot high when I see you. I'll shoot over your head. And Ruben's just kind of demoralized. He's just like, fine, here's my Plex card. 100 credits, fine. Because, Ruben's kind of an idealist, and he's really disappointed by how corrupt everything is and how Earth, especially Chicago, is just such a shithole. So now we find out about Tromplography. And Tromplography is basically in the future. They use computers to just duplicate not only special effects, but they're so good at it that even actors. So after a while, they were like, we don't need you, Ruben Flagg. We got your files, computer files. We can just have this Tromplographic version of you be on the show every week, and we don't have to pay you. So that's how he lost his job. Also, partially the reason he's down on Earth is his parents were kind of bohemian types. They, weren't with the program. They were kind of dissidents. I guess they must have been rich to get to Mars, but they also were vocal about their problems with the system. So they were basically just like, yeah, we'll punish the sun. We'll just send him down to fucking Chicago to the Earth, which kind of sucks. It's a shit gig. So, of course, Bob Violence is on, the most popular show. And the first time Ruben Flagg sees it, he can't believe it. He sees all these like subliminal words on the screen: rape, mutilation, death, sex, kill. And he's like, what the hell's going on here? And he runs to Hammerhead's office. And Hammerhead's listening to some music. He rips off his headphones. And he's like, what the hell's going on here? It's packed with subliminals. And Hammerhead's like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't even like this show, but I don't see any words on the screen. So it turns out that only Ruben can see them. And so Hammerhead dismisses him and says, don't ever touch my earphones again. They're antiques. I'm going to kick your ass if you do. And get the fuck out of here with your crazy rantings. As he leaves, he realizes that someone else can see the subliminals. Raoul, the cat. And Ruben asks him, how come you've never said anything? And he's like, nobody's going to listen to me. I'm a dumb cat. Nobody cares what I have to say. So he keeps trying to bring it up to Hammerhead. He's like, man, I think we should maybe stop the broadcast. That's probably why every Saturday night these guys go nuts, because they watch Bob Violence and then they attack us every fucking week. And he sees that guy Cyril, the leader of the warlords, and Cyril gives him a little wink, and he says, hey man, don't forget status quo. And Ruben's had it. He's had enough. So he puts on these buzz knucks, which are like these brass knuckles that have an electric charge, so it really packs a wallop. He's got this little plexiglass shield too. Just look at this Lynn Varley coloring, by the way. I mean, every page has been beautiful, but now it's really just the deep colors she does. Look at that. You rarely see colors like this in mainstream comics. So, getting back to the story, sorry, Ruben has had enough, and he totally attacks Cyril and hauls him in to arrest him. And Cyril's like, I thought we had a deal, man. He's like, yeah, we did. I paid you to shoot high. Thanks. It makes it a lot easier to take you down. And when he wallops him, then it turns red behind him. Give it a little resonance. So now he drags Cyril back into jail. And so he's like, yeah, we got to preempt Bob Violence. We got to preempt it. And he's like, no. Imagine if we take away the one thing those Go gangs love. They're going to be extra crazy. Because he doesn't believe at all that there's subliminals in it. So Mandy likes to fuck with her dad, and she's got a crush on Ruben. So she says, oh, look what I found. She found some old statute. In times of extreme civil disorder, a ranger may, of his own volition, preempt civilian programming for the public good. And Hammerhead says, big deal. It's after 8 anyway. It's too late. And she's like, oh, au contraire, mon père. She had an idea. She made a thing called Mandy's Whammer Jammer, which is like a jammer for the these broadcasting balloons that hover in the sky. I don't know if they're balloons. They're just the anti-grav. That's how they beam the Plexus programming into every household. So she says, you know how to use this? So he flies to one of these broadcast centers, and it's really dark out. And look how good Lynn Varley does the dark night, you know? So many times in comics when it's supposed to be night, they really can't do it because you wouldn't be able to see what the hell's going on. But she's so good at it. This is really good colors. This is probably in comics history one of the best supporting casts for a writer-artist. Having Ken Bruzenak on letters and Lynn Varley on colors. I mean, that is just like... That's like Elvis Costello getting to play with the attractions, you know? It's like the best backup you'd ever want. So it works. At the last second, right when Bob Violence is about to come in, the jammer works. And somehow it substitutes that episode of Bob Violence with interspecies romance. Tonight, a man, a woman, and a duck. And Hammerhead's pissed off. And Mandy loves it that her dad's pissed off. And Hammerhead's basically like... Well, let's see what's going to happen now when a horde of murdering sociopaths are deprived of the only thing they love. So he's already, you know, loaded for bear. He's like, oh, tonight's going to suck. It's going to be bad. So now let's get to the last chapter. Sorry you had to see my arm there. Oh, I'm sorry, the second chapter. There was so much in that issue. I thought I already did 2 issues. He packs so much into this. Such good world building. This world he creates is... as we'll see as we look at more American Flags, it's really dense and really just fun political satire. It's got its tongue in its cheek, but it also talks about some serious stuff, serious problems about, you know, American democracy and capitalism and stuff like that. So we have Jukebox Saturday Night, Hard Times Part 2. Of course, covered by Chaykin. He does all the covers, does all the art. He pencils and inks these. And a lot of work goes into it, too, with that shading I was telling you about, the speckling. Yeah, Howard Chaykin, I guess, was young then. He could do this. Because this was monthly, I believe, this comic. Let me double check. Yeah, I think it was monthly. So, Raoul the Cat fills us in on what happened in the first issue, using that little Plexus USA screen style. And So Hammerhead's got, even the reserves are out. He's like, this is going to be the shittiest go-gang attack ever. We need everyone on deck. And then Reuben Flagg shows up. And because the go-gangs are like an hour late. And Hammerhead's convinced they'll be there. But Reuben Flagg shows up and said, hey, Chief, I just reconned Mutant and Warlord headquarters. Both of them are too drunk and doped up to walk, let alone ride. And Gretchen, the madam, says, you mean they're really not coming? This calls for a celebration. Drinks on the house. Let's party. So this is like the first Saturday night in who knows how long where they don't have to deal with this fucking go-gang shit. So now we're at the party. I love this Lynn Varley coloring here. Look at that gorgeous, weird green. Because I think that's the lights. See that they're under this neon sign. So everyone's congratulating Reuben. He's the hero of the day. Cyril is there, the leader of the warlords, the one who tried to bribe Reuben Flagg. He's already out of jail. First thing he does is go show up at this party and manhandle Gretchen. So Reuben's got to bust him again. But Hammerhead says, I'll take care of it. I'll book him. You have fun at this party. And Amanda does not like it because I'm sorry, I almost said Howard Chaykin because all of Howard Chaykin's heroes are pretty much avatars for Howard Chaykin. They're always Jewish guys who really like getting laid. At least when he was younger, Howard Chaykin was that kind of guy. So Amanda is really mad that Reuben is making more time with Gretchen. And obviously she's very jealous. So Gretchen takes him to her place at like 5 a.m. And he says, are you sure you just want to go to sleep? Look at the detail on that. Howard Chaykin never drew like that before or since. But then Gretchen's passed out in her like S&M hammock, leather hammock. So Reuben's kind of happy. He's like, actually, I just want to go to sleep. Beautiful and Varley colors. I love this here. Reuben finally gets to his place. His bedding comforter looks like it's a Gustav Klimt designed. Just this beautiful design. And Lynn Varley colors it so wonderfully. But then, like, he's barely closes his eyes, and Hammerhead says, hey, I got a job for you. You have to escort the mayor, C.K. Blitz, to a function. He purposely didn't tell Reuben because he really does not like Reuben and likes to fuck with him. So Reuben, once again, isn't going to get sleep. And he takes the mayor. He's driving through Chicago to go to this, it's a wedding of one of his big supporters, Alderperson Leibowitz. Her daughter's getting married. He has to be there, make an appearance, political shit. And CK talks to Reuben. We find out more about how CK Blitz is not on the up and up. He's pretty corrupt. Talking about how sports are illegal in this world, but you can get black market basketball games. You can watch them, but it's totally illegal. So once again, we got two crazy groups. We got the Moroccan Popular Front fighting the Goddard Democrats. These guys have swastikas on their arm. And, it's just a typical day in Chicago. Their limousine, their Mercedes is armored like a tank, so they're not that worried. And, but then all of a sudden, this other armored limousine swipes their car off the road. And the mayor's furious. He's like, that's not a go-gang heap. That's Dago Red McAfee's staff car. He's been itching for my job for years. So I guess this guy that the mayor hates, and he hates the mayor, he fucks with him. And the mayor grabs the wheel and just totally runs the guy, not just off the road, into some embankment. He explodes. The whole car explodes. And he's just like, don't give me that bleeding heart, horrified look, Reuben. I say it was self-defense, and I'm the fucking mayor. So Reuben realizes, like, this guy is more than meets the eye. He comes across as this cute little laughable guy, but he's got another side to him. So at the wedding, the sister of the bride, Dagmar Leibowitz, she basically invites Reuben into the bathroom. the ladies' room. And here kind of shows Howard Chaykin's love of like old-timey shit. Ladies, madames, dames, damas, skirts, twists, frails. And, but then he hears this gunfire. So Ruben leaves the woman in the bathroom and runs out. And there's a full, gunfight going on. And it turns out it's the Chavez Goys hired guns for the militant Hasidim. The Hasids oppose all intermarriage, even though Michael converted this Irish-looking groom. So Ruben's fighting him off with the help of some of the people in the wedding party. And Ruben has this crazy idea. There's a giant chopped liver tank that people have been noshing on. And he shoves it into most of the guys. And then he takes his some Namnatal gun and does the old Papa Ooh Mau Mau and puts everyone asleep, which pacifies everything. The bride and groom, the mayor and Ruben run out. And they see the getaway car of the Chavez Goy. And Ruben blows it up. I guess they have not just the strength of a tank, the armor of a tank, but they have the armament of a tank. So they go back to the mall. And Ruben's still in his like fancy wedding gear. And the mayor wants to see this couple off. Leibowitz's daughter and her Irish husband, new husband. And they take off. Now we get to see Ernesto Klein Hernandez again. The one that Ruben bumped into in the first issue. He's the Brazilian Union of America's representative. And he's very charming and friendly. And we also see he's traveling with Senor, what's her name? De La Cristo. She's this like very loud, fucking rich as hell lady. Very kind of annoying. So the pilot of the shuttle that just brought these people here, she instantly sees Ruben Flagg and starts flirting with him again. It's insane. This guy is like a pheromonal imbalance or something. It's just nuts. Like every single woman who meets him. And they're always very attractive too. It's not like any ugly women hit on him. In fact, there's barely any ugly women in this comic. So they're flirting. Her name's Crystal Gale. So, well, her name's CJ Marikova, but it stands for Crystal Gale because her parents, they're older. They liked Crystal Gale. And, of course, they make a date. So then this woman comes up and she says, "Hey, you Ruben Flagg?" And the pilot knows her. She says, "Medea?" And she says, "Crystal, are you the new ranger who busted Cyril twice?" "Why, yes. Is that Shalimar you're wearing?" And she fucking buzznucks him. Only Plexus Rangers are supposed to have buzznucks. But of course, she's the mayor's daughter. This is Medea Blitz. And she is Cyril's girlfriend. And so she's pissed that he's already arrested her boyfriend twice. And she knocks him out. But then Crystal kind of talks her down. And I like how Ernesto and De La Cristo, they just walk over him. They don't even see if he's okay. But since nobody can hear them, we realize that there's some kind of major plot where Brazil's going to basically buy the United States, or what's left of it. And I think that's the plan. So these Martian guys have no plan on coming back to Earth. They tell everyone, we'll come back as soon as everything's good and we'll all be a happy country again. But no, they're just like totally happy up on Mars. More interesting color choices here. This amazing green. So Crystal wakes him up and says, "Sorry about that, she's a handful. And she's the mayor's daughter, so what can you do?" So then Amanda's there and she introduces the two to this guy named John Sheiskoff. And he's a gem salesman. And he sells these nostalgic Soviet, very expensive jewelries. He's got a hammer and sickle, 24 karat hammer and sickle pendant. And he's got these red star earrings, hand carved from a single ruby. Because Soviet Russia's gone now. So finally, Ruben gets a little sleep, wakes up. And, he's thinking to himself, just like he's pretty disgusted with how much corruption's in this town. He says, the corruption oozes out of this town like pus from a pimple. So then we have another report. Hammerhead sends him out to this farm where there's an incident going on. A couple of cattle mutilators are attacking this farm. So Ruben flies out there in his little gyro. There's another local militia guy affiliated with the Plexus Rangers. And Ruben hits them with a Nachtmacher, which is like a blackout gas. It just makes everything pitch black. Once again, crowd control. And look how great this coloring is to show what it's like inside the cloud of the Nachtmacher. Just Lynn Varley is so fucking smart, man. Just her choices. I don't know many colorists who would choose this. And we see Ruben Flagg out there. Everyone's like a very sharp outline, no detail. Almost like you're looking at, infrared or something. So Ruben goes in there, and one of them is just like, basically like, I give up, don't shoot. So the other one says, just keep yelling, Ralph, you stinking coward, you're no brother of mine. And she blows his head off. So Ruben knocks them out. And when he takes the mask off, he's like, holy shit. He's like, it's a kid. She's like 16 years old, and she has the letters ASLC tattooed on her face. Nobody there knows what that is. I think there was something back here. Oh, yeah, she says, we'll get all you Italo-Brit Zionist bastards. So they've got quite a melange of political beliefs in the ASLC. We'll find out a little more about them soon enough. So later on, God, I just love this art. So later on, Ruben Flagg has a date with that pilot, with Crystal Gale. And he makes her spaghetti alpha carbonara, which I guess Howard Chaykin invented. And I love this. It says recipe on page 30. And he's not kidding. They have a full recipe for this dish on page 30. I should make it sometime. But it's like, Howard Chaykin just was having so much fun with this book. I mean, he's putting obviously so much work into it. This is a labor of love. But he's also just like throwing in all this goofy satire and goofy things like recipes and stuff. So they get down, of course. It's Ruben Flagg. They start having sex. But then Raoul, on the TV screen, I guess you can't block out the TV FaceTime in the future. He's like, Ruben, come on, you got to get here. He's like, buzz off, I'm off duty, leave me alone. And Raoul's like, dude, Hammerhead's dead. So Ruben says, I'm on my way. So they ride off to get to Hammerhead's office. Oh, I'm sorry, a very important point. As they're driving there, or running there through the carport, because that's the quickest way to go, a motorcycle almost knocks them over. And it's Medea Blitz, the mayor's daughter, and her boyfriend Cyril of the warlords. The genetic warlords. And there he is. Hammerhead's just, somebody blew his head off. But he's got little white hairs in his hand, and Medea Blitz dyes her hair white. And also he can smell motor oil and Shalimar. So the mayor realizes, he says, blood may be thicker than water, but this is a capital crime. As a mayor, I order you to seek out and arrest my daughter and accomplices for the murder of Chief Ranger Hilton Krieger. Oh, such good stuff. Okay, this is the last chapter now of Hard Times, the 3-part story. Another Chaykin cover, of course. And so we're in the office, Hammerhead's office. The news people come. Ruben says, we're not going to turn this into some necroporn media event. And the cameraman's like, okay. So Mandy's not that shaken. She really did not like her dad. Even now he's dead, it's not like she's been like, oh, I guess I should have made up with him. She's like, no, my dad was a piece of shit. So, of course, the cameraman keeps, like, trying to show the gory, body, and Ruben basically punches him, knocks out the camera. We also find out that the war of words between Ireland and the People's Republic of Great Britain is heating up into a firefight stage. So now Amanda and Ruben take off to find Medea Blitz and Cyril. John Scheisskoff kind of, gives his condolences to Amanda and also wishes them well. So it almost seems like he likes Amanda. So Ruben Flagg is a little jealous. He says something about like, oh, John Scheisskoff. But she's like, oh yeah, it's going to be 3 hours. He's like, what? It should be 20 minutes. And she's like, not the route I planned. So they pull over. And of course, even though they're trying to find her dad's possible killers, it's time to have sex. In American Flag, it's always time to have sex. So there's a bed in the back of this cop car, and they fuck. I like this little montage. All beautiful colors by Lynn Varley. I mean, this is some risque stuff. I mean, this wasn't comic code, but First Comics was usually pretty clean. Barely had any sex. But, like, here she's obviously taking it from behind. This was never, like, even implied in comics. I like this kaboom here. Ken Bruzenak goes all, like, old school Harvey Kurtzman lettering there. And just so much shading. Like, I'm pretty sure Howard Chaykin had assistants at this point. I know Howard Chaykin's a big fan of cartoonists, having assistants. It's a nice way to learn the craft is when you're an apprentice. So maybe he had his assistants were putting in all that speckling. So Amanda takes him to see the witnesses. They're these old pre-collapse hippie types who just don't fit in with the Plex system. So they survive by like selling information, also by having a bootleg video library, collecting all the pre-collapse videos. And so Ruben figures he'll ask him, these guys know a lot. He says, what does ASLC stand for? And the old guy says, you don't even have to pay me for this. I'm giving it to you as free. ASLC stands for the American Survivalist Labor Committee. They grew out of a reactionary wing of the old Democratic Party. Strange, eccentric politics, pro-nuke, anti-Semitic, anti-Italian, anti-British. It's just, they're so crazy, these political groups. It's like, obviously, Howard Chaykin's just having a good time, because that doesn't even make sense. But this group, the ASLC, they went underground soon after 96. I'm sorry, actually a few days before the collapse. So, the one younger guy there is like 30 years younger than everyone else is Bill. He's British. And Amanda says that she's seen irrefutable evidence that he's the rightful king of England. But I think we'll find out more about that later, not in this story arc. So Medea and Cyril are hanging out, and she's like, why'd you have to go hit him for? And he's like, he was hitting you. He was grabbing your hair, and I'm not going to sit by and watch my girlfriend get beat up by this guy. So apparently she's pregnant with Hammerhead's baby, and they were going to shake him down. Cyril doesn't even care. She's just like, so whatever, you fuck the old guy. But now we can make money, because it would be quite a scandal. But then Ruben and Amanda show up. They take off, Medea and Cyril. There's a big chase scene through the streets of Chicago. I wish I could stop talking about these colors. This panel's amazing. And also the lettering. So, they beat the crap out of Cyril once again. Ruben, it's Ruben's favorite punching bag apparently. And Medea, all of a sudden, she's miscarrying her father's child, or Hammerhead's child. She's in pain. She's like, oh, get me to a hospital. She's bleeding. So they rush her back to the hospital. Look at this great lettering thing. Because the car is taking a hard turn, squealing. That's really good stuff. So Medea's going to be okay. They take her to the doctor, Dr. Cronkite. And Amanda says, she's asking everyone, is like, was there something on my father's body? There's something of great sentimental value I need, and it wasn't on my father's body, but maybe Medea and Cyril would have it. That's what she was really hoping. She didn't really care about getting revenge or finding out who killed her father. She really didn't like him. But she thought they might have something that she wants. As she walks away, Raoul the cat says, actually, I have what she's talking about. I have the copy. It's under my collar. It's a key. And he leads him to this place in Chicago. It's an amazingly secure vault that only the key could open. And it turns out that it's a pirate video station. Turns out Hammerhead was the local pirate TV guy. He's got a whole setup there. And then he puts in a cassette. Raoul says, start with cassette number 1. And Hammerhead, from beyond the grave says, okay, it's my 50th birthday. I got to make a will. If you're watching this, I'm probably dead. And this pirate station is yours. Raoul knows the orders. He'll carry it through. And it's kind of nice because Hammerhead's such an asshole. But he says, I got one main request. Take good care of that cat. That damn cat. He's a good egg. So we see a little history lesson here. Hammerhead and C.K. Blitz, the mayor, back when they were kids, they deserted the militia and formed the warlords. They started that gang, the genetic warlords. They got plenty of tail. They were having a great time. But after their 13th arrest, the Plex figured their experience as hardened criminals made them naturals for the newly formed Plexus Rangers. So they became cops, which I think a lot of cops have that kind of background. And, but, he was basically planning to, steal from the Plex and, be a total corrupt cop. But then he met this air traffic controller named Peg. And he fell in love with her, and she straightened him out. They had a child, Amanda. And then he has the idea for the pirate radio station. Peg apparently is a genius. It's her technical know-how that makes it happen. And the mayor, looks the other way, and he's kind of a silent partner. At one point, Hammerhead has to, he's drafted. There's some crisis in Venezuela. And when he comes back, Peg, his wife, is holding a little black-skinned baby with blonde hair. So obviously, C.K. Blitz and his wife had an affair while he was away. So he takes Mandy and drove Peg out. And she gave Medea, the baby, to C.K. And she was never seen again, Peg. And then he talks about basically his advice for Ruben. He says, we make a lot of money from black market basketball, showing old movies. It looks like some Errol Flynn movie. They're showing pre-Holocaust theater and porn, Midnight Creep. Just weird shows. Public Humiliator, Love Junkies, Kiss and Tell. So it's basically pablum. It's mindless entertainment. Vice Commandos. And Ken Bruzenak makes great logos for all of them. And he basically tells Ruben, don't get cute. No religion, no politics. Just stick to this crap. And no, the plex will come down to you hard if you say anything political. He gives him warnings about CK. He says, be careful, he's smarter than you. And watch out for my daughter, she's poison. And he's like, my most fervent wish is that they don't get their hands on this. And he says, beware of the plex. And he mentions this thing. He says, I got these secret documents. So in this world, there's a drug called magnum, which is almost like the day after pill, but it's just so you don't get VD, so you don't get a venereal disease. So if you have sex with someone and you're a little scared, you can take this magnum and it'll clean you right up. And he has these documents that say that actually that's been sterilizing all the Americans, because when he found that young 16-year-old girl who was the terrorist in the SCL, they mentioned how I haven't seen a kid in so long. When was the last time you saw a kid? So apparently babies aren't being born, and Hammerhead is saying that it's some conspiracy. And Ruben doesn't believe that part. He's like, what a Looney Tune. And then all of a sudden, someone shoots the screen. And it's John Scheisskoff, the jewelry vendor. Turns out he's not, though. He actually works for Plex Internal Affairs. And he's there investigating because when Ruben preempted Bob Violence, it sent an alarm signal that bounced through the whole network. So they knew. So he was, snooping around, and he saw the whole incident with Media Blitz and Cyril, roughing up Hammerhead. They split while Krieger floated back to consciousness in an easy chair, and he rifled through the desk. He found total proof that he was in charge of this video pirate station. So Hammerhead tries to bribe him, and he doesn't go for it, and he just shoots him in the head and kills him. So he was the one who killed Hammerhead. Medea and Cyril were just roughed him up a little. So luckily, he's about to shoot Ruben, and luckily Raul is behind him, and he says, surprise, chump, stick him up. And he puts his paw on his back like it's a little, so he thinks it's a gun. And this guy's never seen a talking cat, so it takes him unawares. He's like, this isn't happening. So the distraction is enough for Ruben to run over and get some licks in. But this guy's basically a CIA agent, the Plex Internal Affairs. They're like the CIA, the PIA. And he throws Ruben and just says, I'm going to beat you to death now. And Ruben just is so scared. He gives him this energy, and he smashes him with a chair and just keeps pounding him with his fist. And Raul's like, hey, settle down, Ruben. I think the chair got him. It's okay. I love these skinny little panels closing up on him to show how manic he is. So, Bob Violence is going to air that night. Ruben didn't have time to preempt it. So we see the Go Gang countdown. And he sees Amanda in her dad's office going through all the desk drawers. He's like, hey, don't bother, sweetheart. I've got your dad's key. And then he kisses her, though. And she says, the keys are mine. He's like hell, they're mine now. And so is Station Q USA. That's the name of the pirate station. So then we kind of get the whole summary of why Howard Chaykin wanted to do this comic. He's like a total flaming liberal, Howard Chaykin, politically. But he's also like one of those guys like Norman Lear who's like, but I'm a patriot. I love my country. Why do we, the liberals, always give up, the flag and everything to these right-wing cunts who don't love America? They want America to be fascist. But they get to have all the trappings of, we're patriots, we love our country, we wave the flag. And usually liberal people are like, oh, that's unseemly. But he's like, has the attitude like, no, I fucking love what this country can be. And he sums it up. He says, I grew up on Mars with a passionate, reckless love for this country, a devotion fed as much by history as my parents' homesickness. It wasn't until I got here that I discovered the spacious skies were soot black and the fruited plains were rotted through and through. But the damage is deeper than physical disrepair, much deeper. The American spirit, the honest, open-handed driving force of solidarity, has been castrated, betrayed by the banks, by big business, by slimy fat cats who use patriotism like a tart uses cheap perfume, betrayed by the plex. And he says someone's got to stop the decline. And, the USA is going to be 300 years old in 2076, and he wants to make the birthday a happier one. Because that's a big thing in this. The Plex keeps talking about the Tricentennial Recovery Commission, where they're pretending like they're trying to make Earth really good by 76. But it's kind of bullshit. So that's how it ends. Ruben's ensconced here. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more page. So I guess, the Go Gangs are attacking, so that everyone's getting ready to fight the Go Gangs. And Amanda says, other than just being incredibly gorgeous and having a great body, I begin to find I begin to see what I find attractive beyond that. It's a vicious streak, a real venality. I guess that's it. You're cruel, but fair. And that's the end. Oh, man. American Flagg, 1 through 3. Hard times. I guess in a week or two, I don't know, sometime soon, we'll go to the second story arc. But I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I mean, a lot of it could be nostalgia. When I was 15, these comics were just a shit. No comic was ever this good before. But I gotta say, I still like it more than the majority of comics I've read since then. At least this kind of genre, genre comics. This is some really good stuff. So I guess that's it. And I'll see you next time at the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies.